People often say that YouTube has shelled out to corporations. Just look at the trending tab and its plethora of late-night talk shows, followed by a seemingly curated list of the occasional ad-friendly content creators. And you may ask, where is the individual represented in this? The spirit of YouTube. And I wouldn't blame you. I never watched these sorts of videos myself, and it's strange to see such a disconnect between the things I and so many other avid watchers deem trendy and what YouTube does. Some of these videos are even struggling to get past 100k views, which in this day and age feels more like a bare minimum than anything, so it's kind of suspicious. But then again, is it all that misrepresentative? YouTube's landscape as a whole has changed a lot these past 10 years. What started as a small place to conveniently show off your thoughts and projects for friends, classmates, and family became a springboard for launching your next successful business. For example, sponsorships, once held in contempt as a sign of selling out, are now just another milestone in the checklist of success. It's not that people enjoy watching Squarespace ads over and over again. Rather, fans have begun to understand YouTube to be a job and simply want to support the creators they watch. In turn, some YouTubers have even made it a part of their brand, as an inside joke, or an iconic part of their channel. What started out as simple graphic t-shirts turned to jackets, hoodies, dolls, toys, fashion lines, you get the picture. People who started out on webcams and toy cameras vlogging little things about their lives became full-on productions with editors, film crews, and lighting setups. And as even more people began to grow bigger, it just became the norm. Even for those just beginning, there's a level of polish expected that simply wasn't there before. And provided that the gods smile upon you and you do become the next 1 in a million success story, there is a lot of precedent that predicts you're going to hand over the editing work to someone else once your channel gets big enough, losing part of its personal touch. A lot of YouTubers that prided themselves on working solo have begun to cave into this as well. Just how many times in the past few years have you heard someone talk about their unfailing upload schedule the past insert however many years and say it just isn't working out and that they need to take a step back, or rethink what they're doing, or rebrand themselves, get a crew, lengthen the time between videos so they can prepare better? How many times have you heard the term burnout? And I'm guessing you know the answer, but I'll tell you anyway. It's a lot. A lot. Because as a whole, our standards have risen. The audience has started to expect better quality videos at the same or even faster pace. It's not just YouTube that got less personal, it's the YouTubers. They had to. And to clarify, I'm not saying it's bad or that there are no exceptions to the conditions I just mentioned. There are people who are still doing what they want and succeeding, and people who upload infrequently and still have cult followings. I applaud the people who are able to adapt with the change and find such success. And I also recognize that to handle everything alone isn't necessarily a hallmark of earnesty. It makes complete sense why people would want an editor. A YouTuber, in most cases, wants to be a YouTuber because they want to entertain. It's like giving a musician a rusty instrument and telling them they need to clean it before they can get to the actual playing. Some might enjoy it, others might do it just to make sure the instrument only gets the most careful of attention, but a lot of them are fine with leaving the whole cleaning process to someone they can pay. It saves time. But what I am saying is, YouTube has been living in a happy little creator bubble where everyone is special and nice and loves their fans and give everything for them. And with the insurgence of so many people coming onto the platform, it was inevitable that bubble was going to pop. The audience is too general to all want to watch the same things anymore. It's why 24 million views was so big in 2005 and everyone on the site knew about it, why 1 billion views was so big in 2012 and everyone on YouTube plus a lot of people out of it knew about it, and why in 2017, 1 billion views wasn't just a thing that sometimes happened, but also something insignificant enough that I wasn't even aware of the existence of half of these videos until people started memeing about them. In the earlier part of the decade, 100,000 subscribers was an accomplishment. It was unprecedented too, with YouTube acknowledging its creators for their hard work and how far they got with the play button. It established a sort of big YouTuber clique in which it felt like all the big YouTubers knew each other. And now that there's more than 100,000 channels with that same achievement, the tight-knit community was bound to come loose. Now it's more like spheres spanning different genres, from gaming to beauty to music, and on and on. The only time you'll really catch wind of something outside your general sphere is because of drama. And on that note, People love drama. Deny it all you want, but the views on all the videos, the comments, the hot takes, the interaction on other social media all points to yes. It's possible you don't like the drama, but boy does the general public. The earliest controversial video that comes to mind is the Nicole Arbor Dear Fat People video. Remember that? People were absolutely ballistic over that thing. I rewatched the video for the sake of making this one, and upon second watch, with subsequent disasters of videos in mind, it's surprisingly tame. Not to say it wasn't insensitive, but does calling names of overweight people really compare to pranking someone into thinking they caused the death of their friend? Or, I don't know, Onision's slow descent into madness? I would say no, and I think most people would agree. The prank video, by the way, was also from 2015, 2 months after Nicole's video. But 2015 and its controversy was just the beginning. YouTube had changed before. Star ratings to likes and dislikes, favoring watch time starting in 2012, running an independent business to being bought by Google, to Google Plus integration, to not Google Plus because no one likes Google Plus, not even Google. But suffice it to say, this was different. Introducing demonetization. If you've been here for any length of time, chances are your favorite YouTuber has mentioned it or the mysterious algorithm at least once. Extra points for false copyright claims. This is because YouTube had begun to cater to advertisers, which meant wanting people who made safe content to show alongside brands. This also meant channels that did things like swear, cover controversial topics, even from a strictly informational point of view, and show questionable imagery were pushed to the side. This in turn, of course, meant that YouTube didn't push the video as much, which means not being recommended, to getting less views, to having a harder time reaching your own audience, which meant less money again, and the cycle would continue like that. So it makes sense that around this time is when sponsorships became a much bigger deal on YouTube, because it's one of the most reliable ways to maintain your own income. And of course, mental health became a popular topic as burnout flourished in the community, as people felt the true instability in staking their careers online. This is the beginnings of people trying to figure out the algorithm, only to find out that apparently nothing they know is true. Likes? It does nothing. Tags? Also apparently nothing. YouTube has never been the most transparent about this, likely not wanting people to abuse the system, but this becomes especially apparent when creators that had posted for years on the site had suddenly begun to average much lower views and subsequently less revenue. Not that people didn't end up figuring it out anyway. This is how we get to thumbnails with bright colors, circles, and arrows that you see today, as well as the progression of titles where they use parentheses way too often. Examples include gone sexual, not clickbait, clickbait, and so on. There's a lot of different styles of titles based on genre, age range, and other factors, and it's honestly really interesting when you begin to notice the patterns. But you're not here for that, so let's move on. 2017 came, and things only got worse. Many are quick to point out Felix's video as the thing that spurred on what is now known as the Adpocalypse, but in my opinion, anything mildly controversial done by any popular YouTuber at that point in time could have done the same thing. Amidst the Adpocalypse, videos could get flagged for the most innocuous of things, and it didn't help that a lot of them weren't even manually reviewed before they were flagged, causing videos that weren't even breaking the rules to lose out on their revenue for the first few days of uploading until they were checked. Of course, these first few days is when the most views come in. By the time that the videos were remonetized, most of the money they could have earned was already gone. It was a bad time to be a YouTuber and also want money, and arguably it was a bad time for YouTube as well. I'm sure they don't want us to be demonetized. It also gets them money to have ads on the site after all. So with the largest creator cast out of the inner circle, YouTube was probably desperate for a golden boy. Something to show advertisers that they can pull in the views while remaining family friendly. Someone that stood up to all their algorithm changes and could pump out videos at a consistent and frequent pace. Meanwhile, in other social media news, Vine was a thing. The 6-second clips were punchy and played right into the instant gratification that people were increasingly looking for in their content. But in 2017, it closed, and with it, the floodgates opened as Vine creators became YouTubers of varying quality, including but not limited to figures such as Drew Gooden, Liza Koshy, and Lele Pons. What's most relevant to this recounting are two people in particular though, and I'm sure it's not too hard to guess who. Enter Jake and Logan Paul. With their efforts now concentrated solely on YouTube, they became exactly what the company was searching for. Harmless vlogs with energetic hosts made on a daily basis, appealing to the largest audience on the site, children and teens. They played off each other by creating diss tracks, creating a following that wanted to know how it all played out. Viewers would bounce between both channels trying to figure out what the latest gossip was. This set off a chain reaction in which other YouTubers also began to stir up fake beef. And as we all know, this ended up with a whole bunch of boxing matches? Somehow, we live in a society. Commentary channels such as Leafy's Here and H3H3 also thrived in this environment, since more drama meant more things to comment on. In turn, the skeptics would go and watch these videos to see if they were really all that ridiculous, giving those channels even more exposure to outsiders. You see how this is a self-feeding cycle? Anyway, it was at this point, I think, that pranks really peaked. It was the height of shock content, even if a lot of them were fake. And the culmination of all of this, the hustle culture, the algorithm favoring certain content without manual review, the general attitude that every idea had to be more sensational than the last, of course, occurred in 2018 with the Suicide Forest video. The name itself should tell the story, but to those uninformed, it was a video in which Logan Paul videotaped him and a few friends going unauthorized into the suicide forest, and filming a hanging body that they found there. It certainly didn't help that their general attitude in Japan up until that point hadn't been very respectful in the first place, but that only became a real problem once people noticed how messed up the stunt was. Logan knew what he was doing. The body was in the thumbnail. In the video, it wasn't even blurred. He knew it would get him clicks. And he did get clicks. Did I mention this video was on the trending tab? Of course, this led to a bit of an explosion, an Adpocalypse 2.0 if you will. There were a lot of revisions made on the site once more. Some of them were related to the incident, while others less so. One of these changes was in the YouTube partnership program. Smaller YouTubers could no longer be eligible for advertising, having to fulfill a certain watch time quota to get their first checks. This was due to the growing and perhaps reasonable fear that people would begin to take advantage and create more controversial or bigoted content. Ironic or not, they didn't want to risk anyone else pulling their ads out of the site. You see, to YouTube, if you don't give them views, if you don't go above a certain and constantly rising threshold of subscribers, you aren't prioritized. From a business standpoint, I say it makes sense. And honestly, how much money are most of these small-time creators making anyway? But from a community perspective, from the perspective of a site built upon putting the creator above all else, it was a bit of a slap to the face. Or, you know, a dropkick in the nose. Of course, during all of this, in the past years, they'd kept up a certain project called YouTube Rewind. It's here that they could really show off how tone-deaf they've become as to what the community actually wanted, unable to decide between pleasing advertisers and their longtime users. Just look at the dislike ratio and the sheer number of people who thought this was bad enough to press a button. It is, as of April 2020, the most disliked video on YouTube. I repeat, YouTube is the creator of the most disliked video on YouTube. The second of which is Justin Bieber's notorious song Baby with a much more modest dislike ratio. And then in third place, YouTube again, with their more recent 2019 Rewind, panned for its unoriginality. I have to say, YouTube is really stuck between a rock and a hard place. At this point, I have doubts as to whether they can get back on the good side of creators, even if they wanted to. The site is simply too large to have a rewind encompassing everything there is. Then there was Shane Dawson, who rose to popularity again after recreating himself as a documentary-style sort of channel. The canceling and subsequent uncanceling of people like James Charles, Pro Jared, and Slazo, but you get the point. There was just a lot of stuff happening. The scandals popped up one after another, with James Charles having the most frightening drop in subscribers we've ever seen. And it is now that terms such as spilling the tea became more widespread. Another term related to the matter is toxic, though from my observation, this has been a thing since before, just it's also more popular now. It's used a lot when describing the harmful effects of the guilty until proven innocent mentality, but it's also used in other ways. This and that are toxic. This fandom is toxic. This person is toxic. This channel, this movement, this whatever. Spilling the tea is toxic. Complaining about TV shows is toxic. Calling things toxic is toxic. Whatever you can think of, there's one person who'll think it's toxic. The more I go on, the more it feels like every time you think commentary channels are dead, they come back with a renewed vengeance. New vocabulary and insults in hand. This video is running way too long though, so it's time to wrap up. So, to ask the all-important question, did YouTube get worse? Based on what I've been talking about, it's easy to say yes. Just look at all that rampant negativity, the broken system, the silence between creators and executives. So many people have been screwed over of their livelihoods because no one is telling them what's going on. But with that all said and done, as a viewer, I wouldn't say it's very hard to avoid most of these issues. I personally never go to the trending tab. A lot of people don't. People complain about layout changes, but by the week's end, everyone has already either gotten used to it or just stopped caring. Drama, as damaging it is to the long-standing careers of people involved, hardly stay in people's minds for more than a few weeks. Of course, there are going to be big scandals, and there are even bigger ones to come. You don't have to be a genius to figure that out. There are terrible people, and should they make channels with terrible content, then they should be called out. But that's just what happens when you're the second largest search engine, only smaller than Google, who also happens to own you. It's easy to think that drama is all that's on the site when that's what gets all the clicks. That's what all the news sites are on about. It's commonplace now, a tactic for publicity in a lot of cases, and genuine slip-ups in others. And that's just how it's going to be. It's all opinion, of course, but I'd say it's not as apocalyptic as a lot of people make it. The recent policy shift in regards to kids' content was obviously a blow, but now that it's been enacted, I can't recall any of the channels, particularly in animation, who are panicking about it being majorly affected. And with people vying for child predators to be dealt with due to even more events that I'm not about to get into, I'm not sure what they were expecting to happen. It's hard to manage all the people who come onto the site, but somehow YouTube staff is supposed to do it, while simultaneously not disrupting everything else, which is impossible. Again, rock in a hard place. This might change in the future, but as of yet, there's been no mass flagging or false takedowns due to this particular policy. In the first place, it'd be hard to micromanage so many channels, especially after remembering that YouTube doesn't really give a second glance towards smaller creators in such regards. Copyright over music and certain clips are much more of an issue as of now, since it's more automatic, as well as just getting people to know you uploaded. Why is the bell a thing again? Why can't we just... what? Innovation might not be the most popular thing on YouTube right now with channels like 5-minute crafts, but if you search, the gems are still there. There are so many channels waiting to be found, or better yet, put on YouTube's recommended feed, which I still have yet to figure out just how that works. But yeah, that's my little spiel on the state of YouTube. Not the most comprehensive, but good enough to get a general overview of the state of things. Let's just hope it's all up from here. This style of video isn't in my wheelhouse, but I had the urge to make it, so I did. If I got any information wrong, feel free to correct me. I'll update the description, or comment, or something. We'll go back to our irregularly scheduled animations from the next video.